They say that grief can be a long and winding road. You never know how long it'll take to move forward. But what if there's something out there that helps make the path just a little less lonely? Back when she was 13, Tommy promised himself he would read 100 books. But life gets in the way and soon he forgot all about it. Years later, Tommy finds himself back at the local library where he rediscovers his childhood promise and finds comfort in an unlikely place. Mrs. Jean Reynolds sat behind the library desk. Every morning, the sunrise cast long shadows through the windows, bathing the room in a warm glow. This old library smelled of aged paper and fresh coffee. It was one of the last places that smelled like home. Her husband, Harold, had passed away a year ago, leaving her alone in a house filled with memories. But she never felt truly lonely here among the silent company of stories. Harold had been the town librarian before her. They'd met here right after he returned from serving in World War II. He was handsome and had the kindest eyes. They shared a love for literature, exchanging book recommendations over the worn wooden counter. But now, the only sound was the ticking of the old grandfather clock near the entrance. Sometimes during slow afternoons, she could almost hear his laughter echoing between the shelves. The thought of him brought a bittersweet smile to her face as she prepared to open the library for the day. She arranged the freshly brewed coffee on the counter, smoothing down the wrinkles of the tablecloth. Her gaze drifted to the window where Harold and she had shared their first date. All these years later, the spot still held the echo of their laughter and promises whispered against the glass. The library had been more than just a workplace for her. It was the backdrop of her life, holding memories as precious as the books lining its shelves. The bell above the door chimed, pulling her back to the present. A young man stood at the entrance. He was tall and thin with unruly brown hair falling over his forehead. "Can I help you?" she asked, her voice echoing slightly in the vast space. I'm looking for books," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. He shuffled inside, his eyes scanning the shelves. Jean watched him walk away, a faint frown creasing her forehead. There was something about the young man's hesitant steps and downcast eyes that tugged at her heartstrings. Had she known him when he was younger? His shoulders slumped slightly as he navigated between the rows of books. Was that Tommy Carter? The realization struck her with the force of a revelation. Tommy Carter, the son of her friend Margaret, and the boy who used to visit the library with his father. Tommy had moved away when he was 13 and hadn't returned until recently. But why was he back now? What had brought him back to Cedar Hill? Had he come to escape something, or was he running towards something better? Jean couldn't help but wonder. As she busied herself with sorting through a box of recently donated books, her thoughts drifted back to the day Tommy left. She remembered Margaret's tearful confession that they were moving away because of her and John's divorce. Tommy had taken his father's side, choosing to leave Cedar Hill along with him. Back then, Jean had felt a pang of sympathy for the boy. But now, seeing him here in the library, she realized that he wasn't just a child anymore. He was a young man wrestling with the complexities of life. Tommy stopped in front of the shelf where the classic novels resided. Jean's gaze followed him, a mixture of curiosity and concern etched on her face. He reached out, his fingers brushing against the worn spines, as if searching for something more than just words on paper. Could these books hold the answers he was seeking? Jean watched him, her heart aching with empathy. For a moment, the library seemed to fade away. She saw in Tommy a reflection of her own journey through grief, the quiet moments of contemplation, and the search for solace in the familiar. Suddenly, Tommy pulled out a book, his eyes lighting up with recognition. It was one of her favorites, Anne of Green Gables. A fond smile touched her lips. Anne Shirley, with her wild imagination and vivid spirit, had captured the hearts of countless readers. Why did Tommy choose this book? What did Anne represent to him in his life's journey? Lost in thought, she didn't notice Tommy approach the counter until he spoke. "Do you have any more copies of this book?" "I couldn't find any others." His voice, though still soft, held a hint of determination. "Oh no, just this one. But we do have a copy at our sister branch. Would you like me to place a hold on it for you?" She replied, her tone gentle. "Yeah, thanks," he answered, a slight blush creeping up his neck. She watched him go. Wonder filled her mind. How could a simple book spark such a reaction? What secrets did it hold for him? Days turned into weeks, and Tommy became a regular visitor to the library. He would spend hours browsing the shelves, occasionally checking out books and returning them with thoughtful reviews. Each time he visited, he seemed more at ease, his shoulders straighter, his eyes brighter. One rainy afternoon, while sorting through donations, she found a well-worn copy of Anne of Green Gables. A sense of déjà vu washed over her. On the inside cover, she discovered a neatly written name, Tommy. Suddenly, it all made sense. This book had been Tommy's all those years ago. But how did it end up here? Was it a coincidence, or fate's gentle nudge? A wave of emotion swelled within her. Here was tangible proof of the boy's past, a link to the present. With newfound determination, she decided to track down Tommy. After all, it was just a friendly gesture, wasn't it? Just a librarian looking out for her young patron. Or was there something more, a deeper connection that transcended their roles? As she locked up the library that evening, she couldn't shake off the image of Tommy holding the book, his face illuminated by the soft glow of the lamplight. She wondered if he remembered the adventures he'd shared with and all those years ago. Did the character's spirit live on in him, guiding him through the challenges of life? Or was he simply drawn to the story's themes of hope and resilience? Whatever the reason, she knew that books had the power to shape lives, just like Anne had taught her all those years ago. Sometimes all it took was one good book to change everything. She found him in the same corner he frequented, his brow furrowed in concentration as he read. Sunlight streamed through the window, casting a warm glow on his focused face. It was a sight that brought a smile to her lips. The library was quiet, the only sound the rustle of turning pages. It was a sanctuary where stories unfolded and hearts found solace. He looked up as she approached, his cheeks flushing slightly at being caught in the act of deep concentration. "I found this," she said, holding out the book. "Oh, thanks," he replied, taking the book, his fingers brushing against hers for a moment. The contact sent a jolt through her. It was a simple gesture, yet it felt charged with significance. "No problem," she said, her voice softer than she intended. The silence stretched between them, punctuated by the ticking of the old grandfather clock. Finally, Tommy spoke, his voice barely above a whisper. "I haven't read this in years." "It's a good book," she agreed, her gaze lingering on him a moment longer than necessary. She turned to leave, but a sudden thought made her pause. "Do you like to read?" she asked, her voice betraying her nervousness. "Yeah," he replied, his eyes meeting hers briefly before returning to the book. She smiled faintly, feeling a sense of connection in that shared silence. In the coming weeks, Tommy became a regular at the library. He would sit in the corner by the window, reading or sketching. Jean would catch herself stealing glances at him, admiring his quiet intensity. There was a maturity in his eyes that belied his years, a depth that hinted at a soul far older than his body. She found herself wanting to talk to him, to engage in the unspoken conversation that seemed to hang between them. The library, once a place of solitude for her, was now filled with the quiet murmur of voices. As she watched Tommy disappear into the labyrinth of bookshelves, she couldn't help but smile. Life had a funny way of bringing people together, didn't it? And all it took was a shared love of stories.